Real American Freestyle is the new home for the biggest names in combat sports. Now Dallas becomes the now. Watch live at Fox Nation.
Turning concern into action. Austin's Joelle McNew brought students, parents, first responders, and local leaders together to create real change. Through her leadership with Safe Horns, student safety around the University of Texas has measurably improved. From better lighting to emergency call boxes and stronger community trust. We're proud to recognize Joelle McNew, a remarkable woman whose collaboration and innovation are making a difference with public safety. Prevagen is honored to sponsor the Remarkable Women Public Safety Award, celebrating women who help protect and strengthen our communities.
That's going to do it for us today. Thank you so much for watching.
Now.
Right now on News Nation Live, President Trump announcing the most active terrorist in the world is now dead, claiming he was preparing to target Americans, who he was, and how U.S. forces were able to track him down. Plus, a suspected terrorist now under arrest and being extradited to New York, accused of plotting and carrying out nearly 20 attacks targeting Jewish people. Also this.
All I can say is that was a great success. It was fantastic. We made great deals. We did great trade deals. We have great relationships.
President Trump back at the White House now following his major trip to China as a stark warning hangs over his talks with President Xi on Taiwan. Also a key redistricting decision ahead of the midterms, with the latest blow aimed at Virginia Democrats after the Supreme Court strikes down their new congressional map. Thanks so much for joining us right here on News Nation Live. I'm Alex Capriello. We begin with that major blow to Democrats, specifically in Virginia. The Supreme Court declined their emergency appeal, looking to use a voter-approved redistricting map that would have given them an additional 4 seats in the House. We have the Hill's Julia Manchester with us today, live at the White House with the very latest. Julia, what more do we know about this latest redistricting decision?
Hey there, Alex. The Supreme Court rejected Virginia Democrats' last-ditch effort to revive their plan to tack on additional congressional seats through redistricting ahead of the midterm elections this November. Now, the state's Democratic Attorney General Jay Jones and lawyers for Virginia Democrats had asked the High Court to restore the results from a referendum held last month that could have allowed Democrats to win 10 out of the 11 of the state's congressional seats. A 4-3 ruling by Virginia's state Supreme Court eliminated those pickup opportunities. The development puts Democrats on the back foot in the redistricting battle, which has seen Republicans gain the upper hand in recent weeks ahead of the midterms. Last week, for example, Missouri's state Supreme Court unanimously rejected challenges to a Republican-friendly map, while Tennessee's only Democratic congressman, Steve Cohen, announced on Friday that he will retire from Congress after the Republican map split his district into 3 new districts. Meanwhile, in South Carolina, that state's Republican Governor Henry McMaster called for a special legislative session, to tackle redistricting on Thursday. Now, President Trump pressured Republicans to redraw their congressional maps last year in an effort to give the party a boost going into the midterm elections, which triggered redistricting efforts in Democratic states. But while Republicans may have the upper hand in redistricting going into November's midterm elections, they are still facing headwinds, with most polls showing Democrats leading on the generic congressional ballot. Alex?
All right, Julia, thanks so much. Let's also talk about some other news abroad. We're hearing that the second in command for ISIS was actually targeted and also killed in Africa. What more do we know about that?
Yeah, that's right, Alex. President Trump announced in a Truth Social post on Friday that the second in command of the Islamic State, also known as ISIS, was killed in a joint U.S.-Nigerian operation in Nigeria overnight. Abu Bakr al-Mainuki was seen as the key figure in organizing and financing the terror group and had been plotting attacks against the U.S., according to an official. Nigerian President Bola Tinubu confirmed that the al-Mainuki and his lieutenants were killed in a strike on his compound in the Lake Chad Basin. The U.S.-Nigerian joint operation is the latest following the security partnership that was established between the two countries last year. President Trump has claimed Christians have been targeted in the country's security crisis, but security analysts note that both Christians and Muslims have been impacted negatively.
All right, that's the Hill's Julia Manchester joining us for News Nation Live throughout the next 3 hours. Thank you very much, Julia. I'm joined now by News Nation political contributor Denise Gitcham. Denise, great to see you. Let's get your reaction to what Julia was talking about, specifically the Supreme Court rejecting Democrats' Virginia redistricting appeal. Obviously, we've seen that redistricting fight play out in states all across the country, whether it's through voter approval or if it's the state legislature directly discussing and making changes. What do you think overall about the way that this is playing out in our country, and whether or not there are some states where it is more acceptable to actually take this up versus others where it just is widely condemned?
Yeah, well, first of all, I just want to point out that the Supreme Court decision was unanimous across ideological lines. So this was not a split decision, and that was the right decision because all of these issues are squarely state issues. And what Virginia Democrats tried to do is they tried to use a tactic that they said was actually anti-democratic, horrible, because Republicans were using it before, which was to say that state courts can't overturn something that the state legislature does. Well, that went right back in their face because didn't work, right? They tried to go do an end run around the process and they got stuck by their own constitution. So this is clearly a Virginia state issue. And I think moving forward, the Supreme Court's going to continue to stay out of it if it's not an issue that deals directly with something like the 14th Amendment, the Equal Protection Clause. And that's rightly where it should be decided, is in the states.
So what do you think about the Virginia governor recently expressing some concern that it might actually keep people away from the ballot box in November? I mean, no matter where you fall along political lines, isn't it the best interest of everyone
Always.
to make sure that we all go out and vote?
Absolutely. But guess what? They've got a constitutional issue. You don't get to just do whatever you want to get people to the ballots. If you decide that you want to destroy your own or attempt to destroy your own constitution and you get hung up on it, that's on you. You're the one that threw the chaos in it. That's not anyone else's fault. And I think that people need to realize that Democrats, again, did this. This is an issue of their own making. They knew going into this effort to try to redistrict that this would be a long shot, that they probably couldn't do it unless they did it politically. And again, they tried to use something that they had denounced, something that Republicans had used previously, and that they had denounced as something that was wrong, that was anti-democratic, that was chaotic and horrible for democracy. And when they lost, it went to show that they're not only hypocrites, but they're losers.
Okay, let's talk about some folks that are voting today. In fact, that's the voters in Louisiana. We're looking at Republican Senator Bill Cassidy fighting to hold on to that seat against Trump-backed Representative Julia Letlow. As you can see, poll shows that she may end up ousting the incumbent today. Tell me a little bit about what this means in the big picture. Will the results of this election be a warning to other Republicans out there about how they should be aligning themselves with the president?
Well, I think it depends on what kind of a state you're in. In the state of Louisiana, Republicans are squarely, actually most of the state is squarely behind the president. And so when you go up against the president, and in Cassidy's case, he got elected in 2020, and then a few months later, he voted for the impeachment of Donald Trump. And he also said Donald Trump shouldn't be running in 2024, didn't endorse him. And so he sort of set himself up to be at odds with his own party. And in fact, they did censure him. They actually came out against him and called him, quote, an object of shame. I mean, that's pretty strong from your own party. So it's not really that surprising that he's not going to do great in Louisiana tonight. He's actually underwater by about 20 points in terms of approval ratings within the party. And in a party, has a primary that's purely partisan, it just is not looking good for him.
Yeah, it's interesting, and it also will speak to the power of President Trump's endorsement if Bill Cassidy is taken off come this November.
Yeah.
Let's talk a little bit about something that came out new today. Senator Tom Tillis slamming Department of War Pete Hegseth's decision to reduce forces and downgrade the Army's top command in Europe and Africa. Tillis writing on X, I
don't have time to listen to the script. There's a KFC ad on. The problem going on with KFDX is I guess they got in trouble for streaming part of the game and the game's still on. So that's why KFDX is pulling this crap online. MIA Peacock.